Okay, this is okay here. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at some of the games in the candidates that unfortunately weren't covered live. And one match in particular, which is very interesting, was between xuanet from Spain, from Catalonia, and FIDE master Little Plotkin, Mark Plotkin from Canada. And we're going to be looking at these games from the perspective of xuanet, and let's see how they went. Okay, so xuanet is white in game one. And we see the game going down theory road, as it were. Bishop e7, d4. So this is quite often, against bishop e7, white quite often goes d4. Grabs an exchange. This knight sometimes swings to f5 and targets g7. And actually we see that happening in this game. So black can't afford to take that bishop, I think, because knight takes g7, king f8, bishop h6. I think these are all sufficiently awkward that then there's a threat of knight to e6 check, picking up the queen, so the king would have to keep on running to g8, but then the knight can come out and there's to here or here, and there's a threat of pawn at g7. So hi there, IJH. Who is in the chat? Well, I've just started again, so I've lost a few people. And I have Nightbot set up, but if you type certain things, such as subscribe to my YouTube, everyone, and that's, for example, YouTube. Yay! So Nightbot is working. Okay, so yeah, I've got 9 viewers, so welcome everyone, and we're looking at a Crazyhouse World Championship match between xuanet and Little Plotkin. And game one is actually quite a lot of theory. So just to recap, I'll go from the beginning of game one. e4, e5, some bishop e7 theory, and I was saying the idea is bringing this knight to attack g7. You can't ignore that. You can't just go and pick up the bishop. So black defends. Knight takes e7, queen takes e7. Okay, the bishop's under attack, so he drops back. And d5, just opening up. Although this pawn could be taken, it's just quickly activating this bishop. Pawn at g5. And yeah, this is basically white does have an advantage in this position. And black played knight takes e4, and just when I was analysing this game, there is an interesting line of knight h4 hitting g2, because you could take this, and then take back, and well, it's just a very sharp line, but the knight withdraws, hitting g2. It's very important to close that hole as soon as possible and to protect it. And the second thing, not to take it, to sidestep. And if white does those things, which aren't all obvious, then it turns out white is a little bit better. Okay, but instead of knight h4, which actually has never been played before in this very position, Little Plotkin played knight takes pawn, which invites knight takes d5, hitting the queen. And a very natural move for black in this position would be to go queen d7, but then white has queen d4, hitting both knights, and they can't be both defended at once, so that's rather awkward. And it's for that reason that the best move by the computer, which has never been played, is to go pawn at d7 and take it, just so you can go queen d7 and the queen can't go to d4. But in practice, after queen d7, no one has ever played queen d4, so that's a move no one's actually spotted yet, and no one has spotted this, therefore blocking this with pawn at d2. So in this particular game, Little Plotkin sacrifices goes for this idea, and is it good or not? Queen here check, blocks, so it's hitting the knight, so he's defending the knight with this. Knight takes rook, so it's just trying to work out what's going on in this position. So there is a threat of rook at e7 check, Okay, bishop h6, bishop h3. So I'm going to better turn this engine on to try and work out what's going on here. So yeah, so rook at h8. I had analysed this before. So rook at h8, but I seem to have forgotten what. Stockfish doesn't like this at all, because of queen at g1. I hadn't seen this at all. I should have seen this. So yeah, queen at g1 doesn't work. Okay, so the idea of queen at g1 to take would then dropping a pawn on f2 and then taking the rook, getting a queen. So that's a kind of sneaky idea, which black had. I don't know if it works or not. So my engine is not quite powerful enough right now because I'm streaming. So just actually to check, if you would, what do you do in this? Okay, yeah, I think taking is a mistake. But the point is you just defend with the bishop and then you're probably okay. But yeah, this is a sneaky idea because if you did take, you've got pawn at f2, hitting the king and the rook and threatening to promote, and king takes g1, you'd have castles check, you've got pawn takes rook check coming. Lots of trouble. So yeah. Okay, but what happened in the game was xuanet just went for a very peaceful, quiet move. I'm just going to put my rook in where your rook used to be. Castles happened, but white maintains, I think, some kind of attack. So knight check. So the king. I'm sorry, I'm struggling to remember how this works. Because knight takes knight. Okay, knight takes knight doesn't work because of rook takes rook, king takes rook at e8 checkmate. Okay, so that's good. And the king can't go here because of knight takes knight check. And then rook takes rook. Or something like that. So the king came out. He wins the knight in the end. And that's blocked, so only the e7 square is free. He just takes it. Okay, he's just got too many pieces. Comes into the queen, takes with the pawn. Black actually resigned at this point, but it's inevitable what's going to happen. Queen takes knight and queen takes b8. Okay, so that was quite a good game from xuanet. I just wanted to share, maybe there's an interesting idea of knight h4 here, which has never been played, and maybe people will play it in future. Although even knight h4 is probably bad for black, if white finds accurate play. Okay, game 2. So this is actually quite similar to what I play as black. Although I don't play this knight g6 idea, which is quite popular. So, but both your knights are on the queen side, so it makes you wonder where's your king going to go. So now we can never castle king side, but on the plus side, maybe we could open up our rook onto the g file. So this is a sneaky tactic, hitting on h7. So he's trying to open up this e file maybe in future. Takes here, takes, and xuanet's going on in the attack. Knight takes d4, and this position was very interesting because obviously this knight would hang if the bishop were out of the way. And the bishop can't take this pawn because of knight takes bishop. And littleplotkin did a very interesting move, bishop a6, and it's almost like, was that intentional or is that a mouse slip? I mean, maybe it was intentional because where else could the bishop go with the revealed attack? I mean, bishop f1 would be possible. But okay, bishop a6, very interesting move. It turns out there is a move that refutes it, which is bishop to c6, because then that both defends your knight and defends... actually, why not? Because knight takes bishop, then... Oh, hi there, flourish and IJH. Knight takes bishop, do we take back or not? I think... I'm stuck. Do we take back with the pawn or the knight? I I think we would take back with the pawn just to keep this knight attacking the white king. So that's an open question because my engine's not working. So this would be a kind of variation. Bishop c6. Actually, bishop f1 is apparently the best move from white, and then black tries to begin an attack. So this would be actually quite good, maybe a slight advantage for black. But what happened in the game is xuanet went straight for knight f3, which isn't so good because you can take back with the knight. And takes. But what actually happened in the game was littleplotkin took with the pawn. And this would not have been good with best play because of g takes f3 check, which is what happened in the game, g3. And xuanet played at e2, which looks like a good move. But the really strong move for black in this position, although it's not winning, is bishop to c6. Now, the reason this is so powerful is because you're threatening to exchange off queens, and queen at g2 is checkmate. But it's not winning because of a very interesting line. You'd think white would be desperate not to exchange queens, but of course if he blocks, black's got quite a good initiative in this position. But white has a very interesting idea. Takes, and queen at f8. Or if he doesn't do queen at f8, he can also go bishop f1, defending the mate, and then you do pawn at g2, threatening mate on h1, so you have to take, takes back, and then queen at f8. If you try taking this pawn, you're going to get a pawn here, a bishop here, and we have enough diagonals to mate. Sorry, you can't take the pawn. The pawn is defended. What am I talking about? So in fact, there is no defense of queen h1, but there is this queen at f8 idea. So why is this so powerful? Well, if you take with the rook, there's simply a smothered mate. The king has no escape. So you have to take with the bishop, but then we have knight here, king here is forced, knight takes rook, king goes back. And nothing black can do. It's a repetition. So actually this was black's strongest idea, to actually go for this even though it's only a repetition. Instead he went for this, and now white has actually got the advantage and maintains this advantage for the rest of the game. He loses a rook, so the king now is incredibly vulnerable on this back rank. He's going for an attack, but he's trying to create some kind of luft for the king, but the knight's covering this square. What can he do? So actually at this point, rook at g8, xuanet resigned. But if the game had continued, it would have gone like this. Takes the bishop, steps up because he doesn't want to lose the queen with check. Pawn here, well he has to lose the queen with check. Now the knights come in, and the queen isn't even needed to execute the mate. So that was game 2. Let's look at game 3 now. So at that point, the score was 1 game all. So game 3, xuanet is white again, and we see a Scandinavian defense. Okay, so hitting on g2, f3, also stopping the knight. Advancing, but okay. So he finally takes this knight. Often you want to take with the pawn and then castle, you've got these double pawns protecting your king, but okay, he takes with the knight, so he's giving up his knight for a pawn. What to say about this position? Takes the bishop, takes. Well, with this move, white's king is very exposed, and the queen swings from one side of the board to the other into the attack. I think this is classic littleplotkin. Queen and knight straight into the attack, and this is not looking good for xuanet. I'm talking nonsense. So it's not. I thought the attack was breaking through, but it's not breaking through. So yeah, I'm really bad at sometimes at assessing the position. It's like suddenly the penny drops. Oh, this attack is not working. Yeah, okay. So basically the attack doesn't break through. And with the bishop takes h6, kind of the penny drops. Pawn takes bishop, he's just coming in with either a bishop on f6 or a knight on f6, and black has no defense, and littleplotkin resigns. Gosh, yeah, so this... I didn't have much to say about this game. I didn't realize how it's... Okay, so I realized white was a piece up, but I just didn't realize how... Yeah, I thought something was happening here, but yeah. No, nothing. But yeah, black's just lost a lot of material, and now his position is finally... Okay, so game 4. Littleplotkin is white against xuanet, so at this point he's 1-2 down. And we're following from xuanet's point of view. And we're back to theory, but after bishop e7, it is more usual to play d4, but littleplotkin goes for castles first. Okay, so he's sacrificing e5 is xuanet. Devon, it seems like I had some annotation on some of these games, but it seems like not this one. Well, he's lost his queen, but he's not even going to get a rook for it. So yeah, so basically xuanet was attacking quite heavily, but somehow the attack has run out, and in this position it reminds you of the Anastasia mate. Queen here would block off this file and would be checkmate, because the knight is covering off the escape squares for the king. But of course Anastasia's mate doesn't work in Crazyhouse because you can block. Well, never mind. We have this very nice checkmate. The queen, and that's checkmate because the pawn covers this square and the knight covers this square and the queen covers the last square. So yeah, this is really quite nice. So littleplotkin was on the back foot for almost the entire game, just picking up material, but certainly under heavy attack. But xuanet was just sacrificing a lot of material for this attack, and it doesn't quite go. It doesn't quite work. A lot of material being sacrificed. But the king runs to safety. Looks a little bit dangerous at this point, you know. These two squares are cutting off the king, but it's mate on the board. Very nice mate also, this at g6, just cutting off the king so that this knight can draw the king up. Very nicely done. Okay, so that was game 4. Okay, game 5, xuanet is white. We have another Scandinavian, and we have another of these, yeah. And this is a fairly crucial point in the game because xuanet plays rook g3. And basically this is the one mistake of the game, and it will cost him the game. If you play a move like bishop f1, or other moves will do as well. Takes, queen here check, something like this. White is doing fine. But rook g3 means actually black can sacrifice that rook, and white has no blockers apart from a queen, so if he blocks the queen, black is winning a queen. So yeah, black picks up a queen, and it's hard to come back from. The white king is not safe, and yeah, this is interesting. Queen, so he wants an exchange of queens with check, which obviously white is not anything to do with. So now we have a discovered check. If he takes, well, this is all going downhill. Check. And at this point, I think white resigns at this point. Knight to e4 check. Queen is being lost as well. It's not mate immediately, but it will be within a few moves. So, xuanet lost that game. I haven't been keeping track exactly of the score, but game 6. Okay, so again we've got castles instead of d4, which takes, and yes, I've got some comments earlier also about h3. So actually this is very interesting actually. So here, okay, instead of castles, d4 is possibly slightly stronger, but okay, castles, d3, d6, h3. So nothing wrong with h3, but knight g5 is very interesting. What else is interesting? Let's say knight g5 is something which I want to share. Because there's some interesting lines, even some games of the finisher, for example. We see knight g5, knight d4, bishop e3, queen e8, bishop takes d4, e takes d4, knight b5. Black will even sacrifice the queen for that knight. And knight at g6 is one interesting idea, threatening queen at h8 checkmate. And we'll see if we look at the opening explorer, we'll see games between retarded platypus and the finisher who follow this line, but it's not loading. Retarded platypus and oppo weighs in as black, retarded platypus and the finisher. So this is something which, a line which certain people are aware of. H takes g6, you sacrifice the queen or try to. Anyway, so this is just an example line. Or instead of knight at g6, another move, which suppose white would just play knight at f3. And this is following a game from Vempile's black, playing bishop here, knight here, hitting the queen. And I thought this was quite a nice... From this position here, black has a very nice mating attack. He's just got a knight and queen in hand, but that's enough to mate. If you take this knight, queen here, followed by pawn at g2 is checkmate, so king is trying to run. Bishop takes e5. So what's the idea of this? So just queen lands. I mean, this is just... It's just an example. Line. Okay, so knight g5 is basically quite an interesting move. This is not a representative... knight at f3 is not necessarily the right follow-up. Quite interesting follow-up is this knight at g6 move. Then if you take h takes g6, then you sacrifice the bishop, because the knight can't take the queen, because otherwise queen at h7 is checkmate, so you blocks, you sacrifice the queen, and yeah, this is just a very interesting line, and if you look at the opening explorer, you can see that black has some success with it, but it is according to, it is supposed to be fairly interesting. But okay, actually, to be fair, it's interesting because it's supposed to be good for white, but black seems to be doing quite well. So it's probably more interesting for black, actually, because players like the finisher seem to play it as black. So maybe for that reason, it's a good thing to avoid moves like knight g5. But anyway, it was just interesting to explore that theory. Bishop g5, knight takes e4, okay. So he's sacrificing on h3, and black is actually in really good shape here, I think. Yeah, so now black just needs a pawn to mate, or a diagonal to mate. Oh, there's a bishop hanging. So he blocks, while also threatening bishop takes h7, which doesn't really matter, but So he wins a rook, diverts that bishop. Okay, bishop takes h7 is not a problem. Trying to get out the way of knight at f2 and rook at g2, but this doesn't work because you just got rook at g2 and knight at f2 anyway, because the king can't run up. And even if it could, rook here, king here, and if you had another pawn or something in hand, that would also be mating, or queen here in fact. But the queen covers the escape. Okay. So this is not as lucid as I'd like it to be. Let's look at game 7. So xuanet is white. We have another Scandinavian, but he doesn't. Yeah, he blocks with the queen, I think, which is better than blocking with the bishop. Blocking with the bishop does allow this queen here and attacking on g2. So blocking with the queen, I think, is slightly stronger. And it works out better for him, if I remember correctly. And then this is very interesting. So trying to create some weakness on f7. It goes in. Takes. Okay, now in this position, pawn at f7. So the best move was probably bishop at b5. But it's very dangerous because your queen is you're potentially losing your queen, but you'd be winning the opponent queen with check. So he has to do some kind of block, but then we've got quite good control on the c6 square, which is why bishop b5 is actually quite a good move. Pawn at f7 is an interesting idea, but the problem is, after bishop b5 check, littleplotkin had a very nice defensive move, which is simply pawn at d7. It's not completely obvious why it's such a good defensive move, but it is. It's not obvious because after pawn takes pawn, queen takes, white has queen here, and this is extremely hairy because black has bishop takes f2 potentially, and white has drops on f7. So for example, takes, pawn at e3. This is just an example line, but I think this would have been better for black. But it's only because after queen takes queen, knight takes queen covers the two drop squares for the queen, which would be mating. And you don't take the queen immediately, you first go takes here, and then you take it. Now this is good for black because of this move. Queen at g1, takes, pawn f2, takes. If you take, you'll get mated, so you go into the corner, but then it turns out a pawn, two knights, a bishop, and a rook is just about enough to mate white, but only if black plays knight at e4. Knight at g4 surprisingly doesn't quite work. Knight at e4 does. So you chase the king and mate it. So it's a nice little pattern. If the king, another idea is after this move, well, why take it? Why not just run? That doesn't work, unfortunately, because knight here, check. Promotes the queen, and we have a knight to smother. Okay, so at the end of all that, but what actually happened was littleplotkin ran to f8, and that's slightly less safe. So white gets what he wants when you run to f8, and xuanet secures the victory. So littleplotkin resigning after knight at f5 check, he saw the writing was on the wall, with pawn takes rook coming with check. But there was just that tiny window of opportunity here. Pawn at d7 was very sharp, but winning for black. Okay, and now we go to the last three games, which were the most interesting games in the whole series. And so hopefully I haven't put you off with my lack of analysis prior to this. Okay. Drops the bishop back. Okay, what's the idea of this? Takes the knight. Okay, we're trying to get control of the center, as we always want to. Trying to develop. Dropping the bishop back, defending d6. Okay, so littleplotkin really pushing all his pawns. And his king is actually fine for now. But yeah, this is very nice. So he's got a fork on the queen and the rook, but unfortunately there's also some sort of attack starting on his king. Really nice move. A check, picks off the pawn, and black could be pretty happy with that. Takes, knight here. So I should turn the engine on to say what's going on here. Yeah, black's pretty happy, good. I was not completely wrong in assessing it as such. e5. Okay, sacks the queen. Takes. Okay, but now what happens? You've got 3 knights in hand, and things do get a little bit hairy. Takes, knight attacking the queen and the rook. Xuanet, when he's attacking, can be quite formidable. So I was misunderstanding it, because I thought white was doing okay. No, because black's cleared off the threat of... Yeah, black's cleared off the threat on the queen and the rook, so black's doing okay. Yeah, good. Just mixing black and white up. Okay, so he sacks the queen, but he's got quite a nice attack. Okay. And kind of emptying the board of pieces. Okay, could have taken the queen, but goes for taking the rook. And now, yeah, now things are really, really sharp. And the reason they're sharp is takes g2 is a check, and it could potentially be mating. And what happened in the game was, in a way, rather tragic for Xuanet, because he has lots of pieces in hand, and they all get taken by this monster queen. It's quite a beautiful... and Xuanet resigned. Quite a beautiful defensive piece, that queen. But he did have some mates, and just as an example, knight at e2 check. And if you take that knight, then rook in the corner check. If you take it, knight takes g3, looking at the queen, knight f1. If the queen takes, we're winning the queen with check, so you don't want that. So rook here, pawn here, knight here, winning the queen with check, and now the queen's on the board. If instead of going to king h2, if instead he goes to king to g2, then rook here, threatening, knight takes queen, winning the queen with check. So he tries to run, knight here, king runs, pawn here, king goes here. Pawn, it can just be taken, but now the queen, now the queen is no longer defending f1, so the king is being pushed into the corner and being checkmated. And the other option is he goes straight to g1, but then that's easy, you just take the queen. And you've got a queen to mate with, so that's very easy. And the other option is, in this position, he doesn't take the rook at all, but he goes to f2. In that position, in that situation, you could do this. And this rook at g2 is very nice, because the idea is if you take the rook, knight takes queen with check. But what else can you do? If you go here, knight takes queen is a discovery with check anyway. So, yeah. So we still get the mate because of this rook cutting things off. So Xuanet had various mates that rather long mate, probably being the shortest. But in the end, what happened is littleplotkin's queen was a monster defender, just taking all the checking pieces. So Flourish Z House says this stream is so relaxing, therapeutic even. Okay, that's good. I'm worried I'm just fumbling around, but okay. Game 9. So game 9 is also, I think game 9 was also quite interesting, but game 10 was the really interesting one. Okay, so it looks like white's in actually some trouble, even though yes, this is a mistake. Knight takes d5. Your opponent's bishop is staring down on g2, and xuanet, at this point, the score is 4-4. And xuanet goes knight takes knight, queen takes knight, and it's inviting this queen onto a very dangerous diagonal. And knight f4 is good, but queen g5, yeah. Now I'm trying to remember. Bishop takes rook. Knight takes queen. Yes. So bishop takes rook was the move he missed here. Because bishop takes rook. If you don't take the queen, rook at h1 is checkmate. If you do take the queen, can you see the mate? Rook at h1 takes pawn here, king here, and knight here is checkmate. So, yeah. So littleplotkin missed this kind of quite subtle bishop takes rook idea, and instead played queen g5, which is also probably pretty good, at g3, and then took the rook. So xuanet took back with the queen. Knight comes into d4, and it's hitting this f3 square obviously as well. Bishop h3. Yeah, so bishop h3 was played, and I was saying c3 was actually quite a good move to kick that knight away. To give an example variation, knight takes bishop, queen takes. So that knight's no longer hitting c3, and we're checking the king in that situation. If the rook were to block, there's a very nice move we have, which is pawn at d7 check. If black takes with the king, we can check here, and that covers our g2 square. If he blocks with the bishop, we can block the knight with check, and so on. We're laying our pieces on the board with checks. It's really nice. If the king sidesteps to f8, then we drop our knight, defending our queen and attacking his queen. So c3 was definitely the move to play for xuanet. Pretty hard to see though. A very unnatural move to play for Crazyhouse player, because you usually don't want to move c pawn because it creates a weakness on c2. But the point is the weakness on c2 just doesn't matter in this position. It's just absolutely important to kick that knight, and you don't want to waste a pawn kicking the knight by dropping a pawn on e3. So you'd rather push the c pawn. So castles, h4, queen e7, and now littleplotkin is going to begin his own attack, and this is a very pretty attack we see. He tries to block off the defense of this rook, and it just does not work because there's only one blocker, which is a rook. If the king were to run, then knight here check keeps it down, and then we'd have knight here and queen here checkmate. So it has to block, but then takes puts the king in the file of the queen, and now knight comes in, and rook here is checkmate. And there's nothing white could do. If he goes the other way, rook here is checkmate. So xuanet resigned. So he's down 4-5, and we now go to game 10. And game 10, well, I think game 8 was the most interesting in the crazy mates. But game 10, well, as we'll see, we'll see what we'll see. We'll just play through it. So e4, e5 is what it turns into. Ah, and littleplotkin is going to play d4. Almost theory. Takes. Because I was saying in the other games, he avoided theory somewhat. By not playing d4. Okay. So xuanet is getting a bit of an attack going. He's winning queen for 2 pieces and another piece. And with that move, he's threatening mate on e2. So littleplotkin defends with a little attack of his own. Check. Another check. Queen comes in now. Queen taking on e3, and that will be mating. If you just try and block. I think if you try and block, queen takes e3 would probably be mating. Maybe not, because the bishop covers. But no, I think it would be. Queen takes e3, king here, pawn here. Even if you block, pawn takes will be checkmate. So very nice move, just stepping the king out the way. Necessary move. Queen here, the idea is just if you take the queen, queen here is checkmate. So he blocks. Queen takes bishop. So there's a threat of bishop at d2. Okay, so littleplotkin goes for a little bit of a counter-attack, but the bishops cover and it's very safe. Okay, so now we have knight takes, e3, king runs. If the bishop takes, that would open up the queen to come in. No, would it open up the queen come in? Knight takes, queen takes, king here. Let's just... Where's the mate in this situation? Okay, so it's not completely obvious. Okay, so it's not a trivial mate. There are mates. Yeah, pawn at e2 will mate eventually. Queen takes knight will mate eventually. Queen takes bishop even mates. So, but it's nothing completely obvious. But you're opening up the queen on this file, so he tries to run with the king. Okay, now in this position, xuanet does have mate, force mate. And I'm sure even the move he does is also force mate, but he has a shorter force mate, which was queen to f1, with the idea that if the king tries to run, then you got knight c4 check, and the king is cut off from the back rank, so it has to run to b3. But then all these bishops are actually cutting off the king, so pawn at a4 is checkmate. So that doesn't work. So you can't go to b2. You have to block. But if you block, you can take on d2 with the idea of going to here and then here. Or actually even better, going knight c4 check. So when he comes back, bishop here check, here, pawn here or pawn here check. You could block, but we've won a knight in that process, and a knight is enough to mate the white king. Okay, but black is just totally winning this position. So xuanet just said, okay, I'm just going to sack my queen, I'm just going to sack my other queen. This is still totally winning. I've got a pawn, a knight, and a bishop, and all these bishops on the board. It's just totally enough to win. I don't need more pieces. Which is true. He's winning another pawn with check, puts a bishop on the board. Okay, and in this position, knight takes pawn. Okay, bishop c6 is good. King h3. I mean, he could have also gone pawn here, and that keeps the bishop on this diagonal. That way, if king goes to h2, there's knight e5. Knight e5, knight takes here. Okay, well, okay, bishop to so it's not completely clear exactly what the mate is, but okay, so there's still a forced mate, but it's just a long sequence. Takes, check, steps back, check, blocks with the pawn. Okay, at this point there's still a forced mate with rook takes pawn, and you can just got enough, just with pawns it's enough to mate. Check, check, and that will be checkmate. So he can't not. So if you do this, he has to take this one, but then you can bring the knight in, and then again, if he steps back, this is just checkmate. So he has to step forwards, but then that is checkmate. So just with pawns and the pieces on the board, we have enough for a mate. Okay, but instead he went knight check first and took with a knight. Check. Now we still got a mate, but we just need to make sure we get the king on the back rank, so then we can take the rook with check. We don't want to take the rook with check just yet. So what you should have done is at f3, so the king's forced up. We bring the rook over and check, but we're going to have to drive the rook, the king back. So pawn is good, and pawn is good. Now the king can't come forward, it can come to here, but if it comes to here, then rook here will be checkmate. So it goes back. Now we could go rook here. Yeah, that would also work, wouldn't it? But instead we'll go rook here, rook here. Oh, why don't we just go rook here straight away? That seemed to work better. But anyway, yeah, rook there straight away seems to work better. I had a long convoluted thing of going like this, but anyway. Oh, well, it really is weird. If the king goes here, rook here, oh yeah, rook here, and if he blocks, oh, that's checkmate. It's like, oh, if he blocks, you take him, it's checkmate. So it's kind of quite weird. Check, 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 and then checkmate. Okay, but instead you could just go rook here and push the king back. But that is just a really weird combination. You go here, because if he goes back, you're fine, and then that's checkmate. It's just sort of just a, kind of really, it's a mind bender. But anyway, you could just go rook here straight away. But anyway, rook here straight away forces the king back. And the point is, once you've got the king on the back rank, you've got a queen which is going to take through all the pieces on the back rank that you have to block with, and it'll be checkmate. Okay, but that didn't happen. Instead he just got a queen. Fair enough. Knight here check. Takes. What else do we do? We don't want to take with this one just in case he drops another knight here and a queen here and we get into some kind of trouble. So bishop takes. Now, very creative move from littleplotkin, queen at e6. And it looks like he's trying to create a weakness on f7 to drop a pawn. But suppose we just take it with the pawn, and he creates this weakness that he's going for. There's actually no knight check. The rook covers the knight check on h8. h6 is covered. Any pawn check on g6 is covered. e6 is covered. d8, there's already a piece there. Pawn covers the check on d6. But xuanet was spooked, so he blocked. And that was a mistake. Because by blocking, he's blocked the defense of this bishop. So when rook takes bishop, the king has to take. And queen here was checkmate. So that's how littleplotkin beat xuanet 6 games to 4. And congratulations to littleplotkin for quite an interesting victory over one of the most attacking players in Crazyhouse, alongside 12 team. And thanks guys for watching. Thanks Flourish and IJH and everyone else who joined. If things were not completely clear all the way through, have to forgive me. It's almost 4 a.m. here, and I have to be out reasonably early tomorrow. But I really wanted to go through some of these games. I think they're really nice games, and hopefully I've done them some justice, or at least hopefully I've done some of them justice. That's all I can say. Okay, thanks for watching, everyone. Bye.